And there's no doubt our attractions will drive kids out of their minds.
And not just kids, everyone.
I read your book.
Oh, that's great.
So, prior to Jurassic Park, paleontology was popular, especially amongst kids, but it wasn't given a lot of thought by adults.
It sounds like the perfect place to take the kids, since so many of them these days are hooked on dinosaurs. A theme park inhabited by specially genetically engineered species of Tyrannosaurus rex and other big lizards.
Jurassic Park opened tonight with predictions that it may be the biggest hit in years. For weeks, the hype has been relentless. But more than that, people, especially kids, like dinosaurs. Some dinosaurs, anyway.
Christine doesn't want to see Jurassic Park because they didn't give Barney a role.
Why do I have a feeling that somewhere in your family life there is a little person who loves dinosaurs? Am I right?
There is, yes. Yeah. The book actually began when my wife and I were waiting for our first child, and we were decorating the nursery, and I began to buy stuffed dinosaurs. I actually bought a lot of them, and it kind of couldn't stop, and eventually she began to say, what are all these dinosaurs, and why is this happening? And the whole question of children and dinosaurs began to preoccupy me, and I started the book.
In past generations, kids were really interested in dinosaurs, but then as they became adolescents and adults, they sort of lost that interest. Jurassic Park is an iconic film franchise, and you see a lot of the generation that grew up with Jurassic Park keeping that interest into the adulthood. Everybody loves dinosaurs, of course, so I think who wouldn't want to see one of these recreated ancient animals? I think everybody would have an intrinsic sort of fascination about that.
Seems like an incredible idea to think of living, breathing dinosaurs. It's the kind of idea that you think is going to be locked in the realms of science fiction forever.
Crichton has always been sort of very inventive in his storylines and interested in the interface between science and technology and society. And I think that's one of the reasons he found the storyline for Jurassic Park so compelling, because there's sort of the newfound science of molecular biology that was coming to the fore in the 80s and 90s, and applying that to a topic like paleontology.
What is this?
A dinosaur.
What dinosaur? Myosaura, right? Now, when these babies hatched out of their egg, they're pretty little compared to their mother, right? Yeah. How fast do you think a dinosaur could grow?
An inch each day.
An inch a day? Well, that's quite a bit.
It was really some of the discoveries that were being made in the 60s and 70s about dinosaurs, about the fact that they weren't these sort of aquatic, cold-blooded reptiles, but they were active, very active, warm-blooded animals living on land. And those sorts of ideas started to percolate into the public consciousness in the 80s. Also, during the 80s, there was a lot of path-breaking work being done by Jack Horner, a paleontologist at Montana State University, and he was really trying to understand how these dinosaurs lived, not just how they were related or how they died, but how they lived and what the fossils told us about their lifestyles.
One of the things that we do here is look at growth rates of the dinosaurs. And we do that by looking at bone histology, the actual internal structure of the bones, based on the vascularization and direct comparisons with birds. It appears that the baby dinosaurs hatched out of their egg at about 18 inches long and reached adulthood, or what we would call about 20 feet, in about 4.5 years.
When we take thin sections of this material, we can see that they were eating conifer stem tissue. So in this case, it's kind of interesting that we can see that they were eating one of the plants that was probably in the area.
From our understanding of the fossil record, this would be one of several possible sources that dinosaurs were eating, particularly in the Jurassic.
Right. We don't always know who dug it or who dropped the dropping. So we can tell some things by looking at fossilized droppings like these. For example, through a microscope, you can tell that there are some pieces of bone, fish bone, fish teeth in here. This is from a carnivore,
We had ideas that were pervasive throughout the science that dinosaurs were slow, sluggish, reptile-like animals, and the idea that dinosaurs were active really hadn't entered the modern lexicon.
But you never look at birds the same way again.
Yes.
Robert T. Bacher actually popularized the idea that dinosaurs and birds were closely related, and that dinosaurs maybe were more dynamic animals than we had thought before.
This hummer will run you 3 tons, square beak, cropping grass and sedges close to the ground, long schnoz for maybe feeding underwater, huge eyes, very visual beast like a gator, molar teeth like a cow. This guy, Tyrannosaurus rex, that's upper tooth, saw edge. That's a real hummer. That's an armor-piercing tooth. So, gator, 10-foot gator. T-Rex tooth about 5 times bigger.
So you'd have to have more than one Jurassic Park, I would think, to really make it successful.
Well, Jurassic Park is roughly the size of this park, as it's described in the book. So you could have 10 Triceratops here, and you needed 300 to keep them healthy. You need parks all over the world.
You would. I don't see
set up one
any other way to do it.
Jack will set one up in Montana. I'll set one up in Wyoming. There's 3.
All right.
And then bigger fences and a deeper moat. Imagine a Sumatran tiger that weighed 5 tons and that was 20 feet tall.
That would be a situation.
The velociraptors and the deinonychids, I think they would be probably the most difficult because you pretty much have to wait until you had some before you could figure out what they could do.
We bred raptors. The world has just changed so radically, and we're all running to catch up. I don't want to jump to any conclusions, but look. Dinosaurs and man, 2 species separated by 65 million years of evolution, have just been suddenly thrown back into the mix together. How can we possibly have the slightest idea of what to expect?
A lot of the things with the actual nuts and bolts fieldwork paleontology that Dr. Alan Grant is in the movie is modeled off of Jack Horner and his field camps.
You can definitely see Jack Horner's sort of stamp on the movie Jurassic Park because he was creative advisor.
The whole idea is to get people to look at dinosaurs more like birds than as reptiles. And one of the scenes, some of the model makers had made a tongue come out like a lizard or a snake.
And Horner saw the animatics of that, so, just came down on us like a ton of bricks and said, whose stupid idea was that? Mine, sir. And he said, no, they could never do that.
We know that they didn't do that. So had that been left in the scene, all the work into making these things bird-like would have been gone.
If they didn't look real, if you didn't believe their skin, their flesh, their reality, their details, their eyes, their teeth, their mouth, everything about them, no matter how good the performances were, it wouldn't be real. Because you'd have something acting real, but it didn't look real. That's why this is such a perfect combination of art and technology.
I think my kids are going to love to come to the set and to see this guy, and then they're going to want to go home.
Stephen's direction from the very first day was that he knew that there were things with big pointy teeth chasing people and trying to eat them, that he had a monster movie on his hands. I mean, that was a given, but he didn't want to have these things portrayed as monsters. He wanted to bring them back down to a naturalistic level.
My interest is making a good movie that honors the existence of dinosaurs, even juxtaposed with man today, which is a little bit out of kilter with actuality. But if the movie is honorable and can, get people to say, gee, this is the first time I've really seen a dinosaur. This isn't Gorgo, this isn't Godzilla. This is really a movie that I think is really happening as I'm watching it. It was a wonderful collaboration between, effects and artistry and science and paleontology. Every single dinosaur exceeded my expectations. I think the success of Jurassic Park can be attributed simply to the fact that it's about these leviathans of ancient history. It was everything I wanted it to be, no less and a lot more.
Action!
Good evening. More on those stories in a moment. First, the hottest ticket in the Bay Area, Jurassic Park, has arrived. From the looks of it, you'll be lucky to get in to see it this weekend.
Some people now seeing the movie already have tickets to see it again.
So when I get out of this one, I'm going to get in the line and just
And wait all night in line again.
Yeah.
Universal, the company expecting to milk Jurassic Park for at least $200 million in ticket sales.
And Sid Sheinberg, president of Universal's parent company, MCA, tells the Associated Press he thinks Jurassic will be the biggest picture of all time.
Star Wars, E.T., Close Encounters, things like that. I consider this movie to be an event.
They're back after millions of years. Dinosaurs, of course, in Steven Spielberg's Jurassic Park. And the bottom line is that his special effects dinosaurs are truly thrilling, and it has moments of real wonder.
These creatures are back, and it's amazing.
They were able to get such a visceral, immediate response. I mean, it didn't say this is an effect. It was like, bam.
The thrills never stopped. It was amazing. It was really good. It was a little scary sometimes, and sometimes it was funny.
Dinosaurs has been a very, very intriguing property for the last couple of years, actually. Jurassic Park has blown it up into mega proportion.
Jurassic Park, once it was made into a movie, really revolutionized the popularity of dinosaurs in the popular lexicon. People thought of dinosaurs as a different animal that we've thought about them before. Dynamic, scary creatures that are running around, biting things, and certainly would have been a match for any of us running around today.
Jurassic Park only has Goldblum. The rest of the crew stands around and smiles or schemes. But when the animals are off screen, the film really lags.
Look.
Come on, let's go.
We can discuss sexism and survival situations when I get back. You just take me through this step by step. I'm on channel 2.
There's not really any opportunity to really give these creatures their due.
That is one big pile of shit.
It's almost like the movie doesn't have any respect for the intelligence of the audience, that they might really be interested in dinosaurs instead of just in the action.
We could have, you're right.
The movie disintegrates basically into a monster picture.
Mr. Hammond, I think we're back in business.
As with any film, there's a bit of artistic license, and even with the book, you know, it is a work of fiction after all. I think one of the things that we get out of the movie is this idea that velociraptors and their relatives were these hyper-intelligent, pack-hunting animals. We know that they were among the smartest of the dinosaurs based on the structure and size of their brain. They certainly weren't these sort of hyper-intelligent, almost primate-like animals that we see in the movie. It might have been a danger to your dog, but not so much a danger to humans.
It's a small animal. It's about German Shepherd sized. Certainly it was ferocious, but not something that really would have caused the terror amongst the park staff that it did in the movie.
Although there is a little bit of circumstantial evidence that some of them might have been pack hunters.
Clever girl. Don't move. Can't see us if we don't move.
Dinosaurs had the eyes of eagles, the snouts of gators, really good sense of smell. And I would reckon on a night like this that's warm, you'd also have to be really careful because the T-Rex could trail the game rangers just on smell alone.
Must go faster.
So one of the really interesting sort of facts about the movie that came out afterwards is it turns out to make the Tyrannosaurus Rex run as fast as it did but still look natural, they ended up having to animate it at a slower speed and then speed up the film. And this fell in line really nicely with work that John Hutchinson did, another paleontologist, trying to estimate the maximum speed Tyrannosaurus Rex could run at. And he found that it could only run at about 10 to 12 miles per hour, a lot slower than the 60 miles per hour in the movie. Just intuitively, the computer animators came to the same result.
Think they'll have that on the tour?
Look for the JP mark. It's happening, but only at Jurassic Park.
Jurassic Park, Bush Devil Tracker, dinosaurs and figures each sold separately.
We think Jurassic Park has the potential to be as large as any merchandising movie program that's been out there. Certainly something along the caliber of a Batman, Star Wars, and E.T.
Certainly anytime a topic gets more popular, especially when it involves something rare and hard to get like fossils, there's always a small downside in that people really covet possessing these rare objects. And so as a result, in the 90s and continuing to this day, there's been a real proliferation of more private collection of dinosaur fossils. And unfortunately, quite a few of those fossils have been illegally excavated and sold. Thousands of fossils have been exported illegally and sold here in the US and in Europe, unfortunately. And a lot of those go to private collections where they're never seen again rather than going to museums.
Certain Hollywood actors actually collect dinosaurs and have large collections. So people definitely see dinosaurs as art. Treating them as art brings in the idea of private individuals owning them, which actually hurts the science, because if a private individual is sitting on a dinosaur in their living room, that's not available to sciences.
Thankfully, I think there's beginning to be a broader awareness that there are laws against the export and sale of fossils in some instances. And for the first time, law enforcement agencies are actually tracking these down. There's also been quite a bit of more awareness in the public sphere. Overall, I hope that the positive sides of the popularity overcome the negatives. One of the really cool things about the movie is that it really brought into public consciousness as an accepted fact the idea that birds descended from dinosaurs. And it was the first place to really portray this as an accepted idea, which it was, rather than a controversy. And since the movie's come out, one of the spectacular discoveries that's been made is all these fossils of dinosaurs, not just carnivorous dinosaurs, but in fact some plant-eating dinosaurs and even some pterosaurs that were covered in feathers or fuzz. During the making of the movie, right here in Utah, on rocks about 125 million years old, was found a Utah raptor that was actually the size of the animal portrayed in the movie.
This claw here would make a cut just by turning it through a full 180 degrees on this tendon, about 3 foot long. As it kicked its feet, that would be cuts 5 and 6 foot long every time it kicked its feet like a cat to disembowel its prey. Not a pretty picture.
Sorry, this isn't possible. This is we just dug up a new skeleton.
Well, I could compensate you by fully funding your dig.
And this is a very unusual time.
For a further 3 years.
I think the sort of overall awareness about paleontology and all the exciting things that are happening has encouraged more private individuals to help contribute to the science, to funding expeditions and research, or contributing to other foundations. Michael Crichton actually took some of the proceeds from the movie and established a grant. It's called the Jurassic Foundation. I myself have been a recipient of one of those grants as a graduate student, and it really helped out my research.
I think it's important to remember that Jurassic Park is fiction. It's a fantasy, even though it's also a cautionary tale about the hazards of genetic engineering. But it may very well be at some point in the future that it's possible for us to recreate these amazing animals and make a place something like this.
I don't see the prospect of a real Jurassic Park happening anytime soon. As of yet, there's been no DNA whatsoever found in Mesozoic dinosaur bones. It's not to say it couldn't be found in the future. To have them be more than just zoological curiosities where you have 1 or 2 living in captivity, it's going to take a lot of work.
4 million year immune system here into San Diego. It's going to be besieged by all these up-to-the-minute, cutting-edge, modern viruses and protozoa and bacteria. I just have to watch it every week.
There are a lot of pros and cons against generating new or extinct kinds of animals. But I don't think there's anyone that has an interest in dinosaurs that wouldn't like to see one.
Rather than somehow going back in time to create a true Mesozoic dinosaur. Now we're getting a genetic basis in our understanding of how these animals evolved into birds by tinkering with the genetic architecture, turning on and off genes, but certainly it would be wildly popular if it did happen.
Life found a way.
Maybe there was more to dinosaurs than we thought, and we learn about that when they come to life in here.
Yes, I think so. I mean, I think there's a, in reality, any animal that's been dead for such a long time, they've been gone now for 65 million years, it offers the possibility of us having fantasies about them in all kinds of ways.
Certainly, we're getting more of an informed view of the world of dinosaurs today through these things from the science that's been translated into some of these movies. Fossils really have a story to tell us about modern life.
The original Jurassic Park film really encouraged a new generation to get interested in the science. All of a sudden there are a lot of kids who really were interested in becoming a paleontologist for the first time. And those kids are now growing up and in college and even entering graduate school and becoming the scientists. And they were really inspired by the movie. Really, dinosaurs have been as popular as they've ever been now, and even more popular than when Jurassic Park first came out, which is really good for our science, because now more than ever it's critical for people to understand science and critical thinking.
Boy, do I hate being right all the time.
My name's Randall Irmis, curator of paleontology here at the Natural History Museum of Utah and an assistant professor at the University of Utah.
My name's Mark Loewen, research associate and adjunct assistant professor in the Department of Geology and Geophysics at the University of Utah.
We've made living biological attractions so astounding that they'll capture the imagination of the entire planet.